Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody Kinzie. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we are going to do a live hacking Q&A, but also cover one of the stories I have already been tagged in many times. So several of my friends have reached out to me and said, hey, you work with electronics pretty often, and I know that you've done some manufacturing. What exactly happened here? Like, do I need to be worried about my cell phone or my toaster or my laptop, or what really is going on? So today I'm going to take some questions in regards to the ongoing situation with pagers, walkie-talkies, and other devices, all specifically within the country of Lebanon. So yeah, pretty crazy developing story. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen just because it was the thing that I was tagged in most often. And also, I wanted to shout out anybody who wants to kind of share a story with me or get something to talk about on the stream. You can do that on my Mastodon account. So I left Twitter a while ago just because, like things were I think it was, December 2022. If you want to tag me on a story, you can always go to infosec.exchange. I am right here. And this is how I originally found out about the story. I was tagged really early. And so thank you to Tag Hunt for tagging me on the story. The second that I saw it, I knew that we were going to discuss it today. So yeah, if you've got a tip, if you got something you want to talk about on the stream, probably the fastest way is tagging me there. But of course, I'm also going to go through our YouTube comments this week as well. So, also good to see everybody on the stream. James, SAQ, a cat. We are early here, but already have some interesting stuff to cover. So, all right, again, let me pull up this story. So it appears that yesterday, a number of electronic devices exploded. So this was actually the ones from today. We also have, where's the first story? Here we go. A bunch of pagers exploding yesterday. Here we go. All traced to a company called Apollo Gold. So a while ago, this military organization had decided that cell phones were too vulnerable to being tracked. So they wanted to switch over to something that was like receive only, and kind of went backwards towards electronics that haven't been used, at least for me anyway, for a very long time. So I haven't seen a pager functional in a while, except for on like maybe medical professionals or things like that. But these pagers are still in use. And in particular, they allow you to just receive instead of be connected to a network and then constantly update your location. Maybe it makes you a little harder to track. I don't really totally understand the decision to go back to using pagers and why it offered so many specific benefits, but that was the decision. So there is a company called Apollo Gold that makes these pagers that are very popular. They're rugged, they work well, but they also license the ability to manufacture their product to other companies. So if you're a company that has X amount of money, you can set yourself up and make it so that you have all the necessary files and everything to manufacture this product and sell it for yourself. If you wanted to make a small modification, like possibly modifying the battery or other elements of the circuit board or even the programming, then that might be in violation of your terms of license, but it would be completely something that you could do. Because once you license a design like this, you're kind of setting yourself to be up to be able to manufacture it yourself, provided you abide by the terms of that licensing. So what it looks like here is early speculation was like, oh, somebody snuck into this company's warehouse and switched everything. But it looks like the reality was much more of a supply chain attack. So this is, again, I am a electronics person that manufactures printed circuit boards and functional electronics with a team of people who are much more experienced than myself fairly regularly. So when it comes to my experience with electronic supply chains and licensing and that sort of thing, like I work around this enough to kind of see how clever this was when it comes to having access to a design, all the schematics, everything you would need, and then being able to manufacture it legally, at least at first, when it's not exploding, in a way that is very, very difficult to trace. The electronic supply chain is very muddy. There's a lot of kind of the white label manufacturers, well, where maybe they have a factory and they'll gain the rights to create a certain product, but they're not the original manufacturer. So that appears to be what happened here when it comes to the first wave of devices, where originally people were suspicious maybe this company had been infiltrated, but it seems like they were merely licensing their products. So is it likely that your cell phone or toaster or whatever is going to explode? No, because it looks like a highly sophisticated infiltration of a supply chain that allowed the perpetrators here to be able to put out a device that functions normally and then at a predetermined time received software instructions to rapidly heat the battery and cause a second element to explode. Now, it's kind of difficult to say exactly what was done here. Like, was the material in the printed circuit board perhaps like combined with something that was explosive? Like, was there an element added to the battery that was explosive? Like, and maybe more efficient battery material was used in a smaller area. It's not really known here, but what is known is that this was not just a lithium battery overheating. I saw some people saying like, any device could be theoretically caused to do this, and that is absolutely not the case. So that's the number one thing I want to dispel. I've seen a lot of examples, let's say, of lithium batteries overheating, exploding, shorting out, you name it. I've made a lot of mistakes in electronics. And for example, some of the batteries around like e-bikes or like scooters are huge. And if you make a mistake with them, a lot of energy will shoot out. It's very energy dense. It causes a fire, but they don't exactly explode. A lot of energy is released very quickly. They burn very fast, but it's not a detonation. And what I saw in a lot of the videos here was definitely a detonation. A material that was exploding so fast that it was causing damage through a blast wave and shrapnel. That is not something that just happens with a regular battery. So unless your specific device was compromised at this source, it is not capable of exploding the way that we've seen in some of these videos. So like some people who reached out to me in, my friends were just curious, like, is it possible to hack a device so hard that it just explodes in this way? And while it is possible to cause a fire, and it is possible to maybe burn someone or cause damage, it's certainly not possible to turn it into a device that throws that much shrapnel, at least the way that we're seeing in this case. So absolutely the wildest news I've seen probably in 5 years, I think, like of just covering like security news and just keeping an eye on this. Like, this is a incredibly sophisticated supply chain attack that took advantage of licensing. It took advantage of software know-how. It took advantage of chemistry know-how, and it also took advantage of electronics and manufacturing know-how. So being able to produce a commercial copy of something and add new technology to it, conceal it, have it operate for 6 months, and then in a targeted fashion, have it explode only in a single country. And I don't think anyone's said this, but did nobody who owned one of these devices fly like in that period of time anywhere? Or what sort of screening did this have to pass through in order for it to remain undetected for 6 months? Like, you would think that international air travel like might have ruined that whole surprise. But anyway, like I guess my number one reaction to all of this is how many other completely unrelated actors on other stages around the world were planning some sort of reveal that involved an exploding device whose millions of dollars of work is now ruined by this event. Because people are going to, of course, I think most countries are going to be like, all right, wow, we really need to examine this and probably discover other potentially unrelated plots to insert similar things into supply chains as a result. So really stunning that this is going to make people re-examine supply chains in a crucial way and see it as an issue of national security. Never again will we be ignorant to the possibility that a well-infiltrated supply chain can have incredibly serious consequences. So normally this would be like, oh no, somebody put a spy chip by, creating commercial copies. This is not a spy chip. This is an explodey box that was added instead. So truly a stunning attack. Obviously, that's why I was tagged in it so often. Like, I appreciate the complexity of this. You have to have modifications to the original software, or at least something that's able to cause what seems like a thermal runaway with the battery that heats like a secondary or something that's very sensitive to a particular temperature to then go off and trigger the rest of the explosive. There's a lot of speculatory information out there, so just try to stick to the facts on this one. But yeah, some pretty crazy stuff coming out today. And just wanted to calm anyone's fears who, for one, is maybe like pushing their electronics to the side, worrying if like any LiPo battery could do this. No, it does not look like that is the case. This is truly like on the Stuxnet level of crazy targeted attacks when it comes to electronics, software infiltration, hardware infiltration, you name it. This is quite an interesting developing story. So I'm sure a lot of people in the electronics world are going to be talking about this. People in the hacker world are definitely talking about this. And it's a story you're probably going to see continuing to pop up as the story develops. Now, the fact that additional devices exploded today is something that I haven't even covered yet. So today, I saw several videos showing walkie-talkies also exploding. And it was mentioned that other electronic devices were also exploding. So these seem to be a bit more deadly in terms of actually like causing casualties from what was reported. But if you look at some of these photos, it very much, and from having owned radios like this, it very much looks like the battery unit is what exploded here. The battery unit clips onto the back of these sorts of radios. I've used them when I was a security guard, and not this exact model, but other Motorola radios. And when the battery is clipped onto the back here, there's a very large battery unit that is attached right here that also communicates with the rest of the device through a little bus. So it is possible, if the firmware was modified on these, that a signal from the radio could cause the battery to heat up and then possibly explode. So it's kind of seeing a pattern developing here. But we will have to see if there's any more information and details about this later in the day. For now, that's really all the information we have. And again, it does seem like this is something that has to do with the electronic supply chain legally licensing some of these designs and then producing copies, which again requires a stunning amount of technological know-how to make sure that you're creating functional devices that are getting no complaints, that operate as intended, but also include new technology that's able to survive potentially getting left in a hot car, flying on an airplane, or other sorts of things that would kind of like uncover other attempts to do this sort of thing. So really gonna have to have a lot of these questions answered before we know all the information. But yes, thank you all for tagging me in this. As an electronics person, I was talking with some of my colleagues about this last night, just about how sophisticated of an attack this was and how targeted at the same time it was. Some people were also calling this an incredibly targeted strike, in that it only went after specific devices. So that means that there was a signal or a message that caused an error. So I think it was CNN that was reporting that there was an error message that was transmitted to all the devices that attempted to explode. So the fact that this was targeted against specific devices, it wasn't like every device that was sold all exploded at the same time. It was actually a message that was sent to the device that caused it to go off. So yeah, a lot to absorb today. I've spent several hours kind of trying to keep up with what's going on, looking at photos, chatting with other people that are kind of interested in it. And yeah, it's been a lot. So hello to everybody that's joining the stream at this point. Yeah, so one question was, I wonder if airport security will look at pagers differently now. I don't know how they didn't spot it. So yeah, carrying a lot of electronics also is something that's kind of unique for me, where frequently when I'm going to conferences, I have enough electronics with me that it just gets flagged, because there are some older scanners that don't do very well at looking through printed circuit boards. So if you have multiple levels of printed circuit boards, it blocks the, whatever rays they're using, and they have to physically inspect it. Now, a lot of the time that results in whatever that is getting swabbed over and over and over. And I've had every single part of my bag opened up, searched, and inspected before. And it seems like the general policy is, yeah, if I don't know what it is, and if it's an electronic device that's difficult to scan, then instead let's just swab it over and over for potentially explosives or something like that. Seems like a pretty common sense policy. And it also seems like if these did have something like that inserted inside them, that might detect this sort of thing. So the current way of screening electronics seems to me anyways to be pretty effective against looking for these sorts of devices, because if a device is unrecognized or difficult to scan, then it gets additional screening. For a device that is recognized, like an old pager, that might not be the case. So it's interesting that this might actually be a loophole. I don't really know, but that's a really interesting point to raise, and was one of the first things that I thought about when I saw the story. Why do people like doing bad things? Right. That is really the moral of the story today, is as hackers, people are always looking for like loopholes and trying to think of like, what's the worst that could happen? And in this case, it was kind of showed exactly what the worst that could happen. If you don't know where something comes on a supply chain and that supply chain has been compromised, the result might not be a data breach. It might be something more serious in some cases. And this is, again, the first time I've ever heard of anything like this, but it is truly a stunning case of how the complexities of the electronic supply chain and the fact that you can buy a fully licensed version of a product that people are currently purchasing and insert it into the supply chain is something that has been known for a while, but I never saw it blown wide open in this sort of way. All right, so I'm going to go back through the questions really quick. See if there's any. Let's see. Okay, so here's a good question. Pivoting rapidly from that story that I was tagged in a million times and wanted to get out of the way at the beginning. Is hacking scammers a good thing or a bad thing? So I've seen a lot of people get into ethical hacking because they see YouTube videos where people are like hacking scammers. And that means like they're doing things that would be probably illegal to do against like some random person, and they're targeting people who are committing crimes in a way that is not immediately accountable or enforceable. So these are interesting videos. I've seen them before. I honestly don't know how I feel about them. The hardest thing to teach about ethical hacking is the ethics and getting people used to like attacking like offensively, even like a criminal that's not like subject to, I don't know, like extradition or arrest or nobody's interested or whatever, seems dangerous to me. It just seems like something where if you're wrong or if you make a mistake or any number of other things, you could potentially be committing a crime and putting yourself at a lot more risk than any sort of like moral feeling you get from that scenario. I have a kind of like judge of a situation where if there's no possible way I can come out benefiting from engaging in a situation, I just won't engage with it. It's to me something that is, I call it mentally a bus fight. It's not something you want to engage with. So to me, like seeing something like this and then imagining myself jumping in and attempting to humiliate the scammer and exact justice, it's just not my cup of tea, I guess I would say, because I'm worried, what if I make a mistake? What if I get arrested? What if I do something that is illegal in that country and now I'm like internationally wanted? Maybe I'm just an anxious person, but anything that could be a crime against just like another random person, like I probably wouldn't do, or at least acknowledge against like a scammer. When it comes to like gathering information or like tricking them into disclosing information or maybe blurring the line to conduct an investigation and try to get them shut down, that would be one thing. But actually going after them personally, for one, I don't want a vendetta. What if they know someone who's way crazier, because they're making money for like a crime syndicate? Like, what if I like suddenly make an international crime syndicate interested in me and my family for like YouTube likes? Like, why? Like, I don't want that. So life is complicated, and I choose not to engage in situations that could potentially cause more grief than they do benefit. And that is why I personally would never, ever do that. But I know a lot of other people do. And especially on YouTube, there's no shortage of these channels that purport to do that. Again, to me, I think that is not a good example of ethics or like where to stop in certain scenarios. And I think that it might be teaching people lessons where if they were to do that stuff at work, people would be like, are you crazy? Like, why would you do that? Like, now we look crazy. So yeah, like I think that most people, if they're going to want a job in cybersecurity, want to be perceived as acting rationally and like not doing anything that could make the company they're going to work for look bad, and going personally after scammers in another country, like that might not be perceived as restrained. That would be my only take on that. Do I think those people deserve it? Yeah, they frequently scam elderly people. Like they're some of the worst. They really target people who have very few defenses against that sort of attack, and it's super unethical, and they probably deserve when they do get hacked. Like I'm not gonna lie, but is it worth me personally putting myself at risk? Like I would never do it. Nuanced response on that one. Let's see. The exploding phones and pages reminded me of Mr. Robot trying to level a building by exploding UPS system. Yeah, so one of the plots in Mr. Robot was he attempted to create a bunch of hydrogen gas by causing a chemical reaction in the uninterruptible power supplies that were being used in the building. Now, that gas was supposed to fill a room, and then if a spark was created, cause an explosion, and kind of like using something that was unmodified, but maybe with different firmware or like a flaw that caused it to operate in a way that was undesirable. This is even more sophisticated because it required like knowledge of licensing, supply chain sourcing, and also creating a functional device that operated without any indications modification for 6 months before being very specifically targeted. And again, I wonder how many completely unrelated like vendettas involving like a twist with an exploding device have now been ruined by the increased scrutiny this will create. Let's see. All right. Let's see. This attack was science fiction and law-abiding citizen, and now it's for real. Yeah, that's. I think a lot of people are waking up today and realizing that you don't always know where the devices around you come from, and it has become harder than ever to really be able to like track that and prove that and know for a fact. So people worry about like, oh, this thing's gonna steal my data, it's gonna infect my, it's gonna infect my network with malware, and that will become either part of a distributed denial of service attack, or maybe I'll start crypto mining for some random person around the globe. Well, the consequences can be even more serious in some cases, and I think that's never been more clearly illustrated than today. So yeah, a little bit of anxiety for everyone. Sorry about that. Yeah, a lot of other people had the exact same thought as me about the airport security angle. I imagine there's so many conversations going on right now. I like your hat. Yeah, thank you very much. This is from somewhere that I used to live in, Troy/Libby, Montana. Some of the most beautiful country I've ever been to. Glad you like it. All right, so I will continue to take messages in the chat as I can. Oh, yes. Hey, Kody, did you have a chance to take a look at my proof of concept? If so, what did you think? I have successfully managed to extract it, and I have taken a look at the general outline. I now understand what's going on, and I'm going to be running it on a isolated Linux system because of stuff like this. So sorry to be extra paranoid, but yeah, I am going to be taking a look at it in the immediate future. I just had to take some time off last week to recover from a stomach bug, which is why I am now skinnier. Let's see. Okay, here's a question. Can we set up a mini cell tower and have very modified and have access to any phone in like a 1 kilometer range? Possible to do exploding phones the same way. So this seems like it's a suggestion for like a cell site simulator. So creating a fake cell tower is possible if you want to have direct access to a bunch of the devices, other cellular devices in your area. It doesn't really allow for a lot of stuff at the moment because most of the encryption, the communication that's going to pass through that is going to be encrypted. But it is something that you can do. I don't think it can cause phones to explode though. That is something where you need the whole supply chain conspiracy thing. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer to this one, but it is something I should get an answer for. Would you suggest bug bounty? Oh, sorry. I thought you were asking for a specific one. I do have an answer for this one. Would you suggest bug bounties for young people who are passionate about cybersecurity and penetration testing? Yes, and also no. So would I suggest it as a means of income? No. It is something that you're going to get sporadic and sometimes very frustrating results. And I've seen it be a source of a lot of stress for people who think that they're going to be able to pay their rent off of bug bounty stuff. It's not. It is a resume booster. It is a way to make some money, but I have found that most people find it very difficult to be able to make a living off of bug bounties. However, if you understand that and you're cool with that, and you're looking to make maybe a couple extra $100, maybe a couple $1,000, if you start getting into more serious bug bounties, then yes, I think it's a way that you can try your skills in a real environment and without getting in trouble, poke around and have the experience managed by someone who is not going to let you, hopefully, unless you're being really crazy, get sued or have your reputation damaged while learning. The number one thing I worry about when people are just getting started in cybersecurity is, do you know how to do the human parts of disclosure? Do you know what to do when you find a vulnerability? Do you know when to stop? Are you going to go too far and get excited and want to see like, you know, oh, could I test it? Could I really send that message to all devices and end up on front page news? That's going to get you in trouble. Whereas something like a bug bounty program is going to get you used to some of the, maybe they're boring parts of the disclosure process, but they're the parts that keep you safe. So that's where I really do recommend bug bounty companies like CrowdStrike or HackerOne, also known as HackerOne. Both of them are really good for guiding people through the disclosure process and making sure that if you do find something, you don't get in trouble. I have heard some criticism that maybe like they will tell you that somebody else already discovered it or that the vendor's not approving it. And you might put in some really fancy, really good work and then find out that not only can you not talk about it during the disclosure process, but also you're not getting paid. That's really, really frustrating. So just be aware that sometimes the process can be unfair and frustrating, but the flip side of that is if you freestyle it, you do run the risk of potentially getting in trouble and harming a career that you're trying to build through practicing this sort of thing. So do take help with disclosure seriously. Learn about the human side of disclosing vulnerabilities. I think that's really the benefit that you get out of those programs, not necessarily cash all the time, on time for rent. The famous yeah but no answer. Yeah, as hackers like to say, it depends. Whenever I meet someone new and they learn that I'm a hacker, they're like, oh, so could you hack my cell phone? I'm like, yes, but also no. Like, you know, what do you want me to have it do? Like, do you want me to have like, am I screenshotting everything and then like able to make calls from it? Or am I just able to like make, I don't know, websites load in a different language on your screen? Like, you know, like it all depends on what exactly you're trying to do. So the answer is never that straightforward. Am I going to have a Q&A with Occupy the Web? You know what? I was in the shower like 2 days ago and I was like, wouldn't it be funny to just have like an arc with that and have the previous person who was in charge of Nullbyte come back and like explain like what things were like? Because I know that he left on super bad terms with the owner and that most of the other hackers on that forum left with him. And when I took over the Nullbyte channel, or actually the Nullbyte website, it was just like not good. Like all the internal messaging had been shut down. Nobody could communicate with anybody. It had turned into a real wasteland. So it would be interesting to hear his take on what happened beforehand and kind of close that out. Because yeah, the only real experience I ever had with Occupy the Web was just some like unfortunate comments when I first started working at Nullbyte about how I used a Mac computer and I couldn't seriously, you know, be in charge of the website. They would let anybody do it. I clearly couldn't know anything. And I was like, wow, like this community is really toxic. Like they'll really make fun of you or try to make it so you don't feel like you can contribute for any reason. But that wasn't true. It was just kind of some people's approach to teaching in this area is to be more anonymized, to kind of like, I don't know, be maybe a little larger than life. And that's fine. I think that it inspires some people, but it's not really the people I'm speaking to usually when I'm making a tutorial. I'm talking to people that are totally cool with looking stupid when they're learning something for the first time. And they don't necessarily need to be learning it from the Navy SEAL of computers. I am not the Navy SEAL of computers. I just know how to break some, and I like teaching other people what I'm learning as well. I'm pretty clear about the limitations of what you can and can't do. And while I like to get people's imaginations going, cybersecurity can be pretty boring work. And, you know, it's nice to inspire people. And I appreciate that he does that. He makes a lot of the things that are very boring a lot more exciting and interesting to do when put in the right context. I think that's one of the best attributes of being a storyteller or an educator is getting people to be passionate about what you're talking about. So I have a lot of respect for that. I think he's taught a lot of people, and I know a lot of people have benefited from it. I just had such a funny first experience that having him on the stream would be a truly interesting process. I'd be like, what's your real name? But whatever. Like who cares? I think anybody can contribute. But I've been, you know, pretty upfront about who I am from the start because at a certain point, I think you have to show people that if you're going to talk about this stuff, it's normal to learn about hacking. Like, it's not something that we have to do in like behind closed doors or anything. So yeah, it's just a very different approach, but I do respect it. And I think that it would be cool to do a Q&A with him sometime. Is the laptop fixed? So my good friend Autumn did me the service of attempting to fix that computer, and here it is right now. I would say no. She lost about 6 screws, and Autumn, if you're watching, please fix this. But no, at the moment, this computer is not fixed. I would say it's probably the complete opposite of being fixed. About to go back in the microwave with the rest of the other computers I have that I'm not using. So several of my friends also thought it was weird that I put my computer in the microwave when I'm not using it. Now they all think that I knew something, and they're like, why do you put your computers in the microwave? Why is that your default storage? The reason is I think it's funny. And in instances like this, it does seem like I knew something. But really, like, I just think it's a funny place to put electronics when you're not using it. So I have an extra microwave. That's where I keep my extra laptops, and that's where this one is now going. Not because I know something, just because that's where it goes. Let's see. Hello, I am in the process of building a statics plus dynamic malware analyzer platform, but with some added spiciness on top in terms of classifying the samples. Is this a good project? I mean, yeah, it sounds like a good project. So what it sounds like you're building is a tool for analyzing malware samples that has some special sauce that you're interested in contributing. Yeah, like these are the kinds of projects where if you have something that is generally useful and then you have a specific use case you want to make it a little better for, oftentimes those changes are noticed by people in the industry. They think it's cool, interesting, and that's how you get your start, maybe by making some contributions and showing it off. So I applaud projects like that. I think that they're almost an alternative to certifications, is like updating things, being involved in projects, or otherwise attaching yourself to some of these projects and making them a little bit better. So if you're able to make contributions or work on these sorts of projects, I think that they are career builders, and they're generally perceived as very, very helpful for the community. It's a Faraday box. Yeah, no, but it's also the fastest way to get rid of them if they turn on you. Just put them on pizza. I put a phone in the microwave and I could still call it. Yeah, I have to be honest, they're not great Faraday cages. If you're using it for Faraday specifically, then you should put them in a bag and then inside of that instead. All right, so let me see if there's some other things. Oh yeah, so we also have some comments. So I do read these, and we've been releasing so many of these videos lately that I've started to get behind in responding to these. We've released a lot of the cutouts that we've done from these streams covering news topics, and I think it's found a lot of new people. So one question was, why does my car horn not work when I remove the low jack? Hello, safety. That is amazing to me. A lot of these integrated systems are tied into everything, right? Like, so for example, like low jack might be tied in some critical way into the horn, where it's primed by the horn, where it starts like recording information, like if you honk. It's not really known, but the fact that you can disable your own horn by removing low jack, allegedly, is certainly a safety concern, and wouldn't be the first time that we reported on critical safety systems being disabled when you try to deactivate or remove tracking from a vehicle. We had another short that we covered on how if you tried to opt out of data collection from Toyota, they would also disable the automatic crash detection feature, where they would call for help if you were in an accident. So yeah, it can be difficult to try to remove things that are tracking you because in exchange, maybe something happens. Again, this is just a comment, but it could be true. Who knows? I'm a web developer and want to start. Let's see. I'm a web developer and I want to start doing some learning regarding hacking. Does anybody have some suggestions? I'm going to give you my tried and true suggestion, which is the Portswigger Academy. So Portswigger Academy, let me pull it up, is from the same company that makes Burp Suite. And what's cool about it is it has live web applications that are vulnerable. So you can go through the Academy and select some of the vulnerable topics you want to learn about. So a lot of these relate to specific skills within web application pen testing. And you can actually try out some of the things you already know about web applications and see if it gives you an edge in understanding some of these attacks. I know nothing about them, but let me see if it'll let me look at all labs. They love to force me to sign in on this. Okay, cool. So I have completed a lot of these, and the ones that I specifically focused on that I think are really beginner friendly are not cross-site, not clickjacking, not DOM vulnerabilities. Let's see. But as you can see, there's a lot of topics that like don't seem that hard, but come up constantly in security. OS command injection, server-side template, path traversal. All these are really good. But all right, this is where I love access control vulnerabilities. I love bypassing access control. So when I was doing this, I loved to go through these labs and try to poke through authentication and see if I could break into services that I wasn't supposed to get access to. And I found that in very simple services or things that are not implemented very well, a lot of these tricks are very, very common and work very easily. Now, the thing that sucks is that if you use Burp Suite to complete these, which is the official product of Portswigger, it is rate limited. So literally trying to do some of these labs that involve brute forcing is painfully slow and makes me just not want to do it at all. However, if you use free alternatives like ZAP, Z Application Proxy, you can complete all of these and be able to do them at full speed, although you probably won't be able to use some of the hints that are provided if you get stuck that show Burp Suite examples. So I did most of these, like the 2FA Simple Bypass was one of my favorite ones, Password Reset Broken Logic. Yes, Wiener Peter, the default the default credentials of my nightmares as I learned this a couple years ago. These sorts of techniques will teach you the basics of the most commonly used techniques to get around authentication and some of these other techniques. And then if you want to break out and learn some of the more specific ones, you as a web developer will probably have a little bit more experience than I do with the underlying principles of the rest of these labs. But I really enjoy them. I thought it was nice to learn. And I, again, have no experience as a web application developer, so I don't know the internals of these, and I'm just kind of like learning these lessons one by one. So if I can do it, then I think you could probably do them as well. Again, these labs are free. It's the product that isn't, but you can use free alternatives like Zap in order to get around that. Do I have it installed? I do. I wonder if it actually works. Well, either way, we'll see if that pops up. But that would be my recommendation for you. It is not too difficult to get started when it comes to web application pen testing stuff. Just finished all OWASP stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's great. I've heard that OWASP is no longer involved in ZAP for whatever reason, and I don't know what the T is there, but yes, it does in fact work on my screen. So if you want to switch over real quick to my screen, you can see this is the of course it just switches over to my other screen. Let me see if I can drag it over. There we go. So this is that. This is what I use personally when I'm solving these labs. It works most of the time. And the idea is that if I want to, do I want to update now? No. If I want to get started with this, come on, scroll. Does it get smaller? Wow. All right, so what Zap lacks an elegant design now that I can't read the 3 primary use cases here, thanks to this update. Learn more? No? Whatever, all right. Well, this elegant piece of free software is able to intercept requests and give you information about what's going back and forth, and also allow you to modify those requests and send them in a automated fashion. You can use scripting, you can do fuzzing of endpoints, you can do all sorts of interesting stuff, and it allows a lot of the research that I've done against, for example, scam emails that I'll get. I'll actually put the URLs in here, follow the trail of redirects, and find out exactly who, well, not who's doing the attack, but what the infrastructure is and what it looks like. Hello, Aria. Good to see you on the stream. And good luck on getting your car. let's see, just reading through all the comments. One question was, what happened to Nullbyte? So I've actually created some new episodes for the Nullbyte channel that are currently under review. We will see when they get published. So they are completed. I think there may be some modifications to get done to them, but I don't really anticipate too many more. So yeah, look forward to hopefully some new videos on the Nullbyte channel in the next month or so. So here's a question. What effect do you see this having on IoT and OT security in the near future? I imagine more bans will come in regards to title. That I'll probably have to look up in order to respond to, because the only thing I'm still thinking about was the pager supply chain thing and like whether or not that's going to have any security incidents. But that one I might have to stream for the save for the stream. I opened KiCad for the first time the other day. Big respect for knowing what you're doing. Yeah, KiCad's one of those programs I see like Wireshark, where when it opens up, I'm like, there's too many things going on here. I don't know where to get started. It feels like when I open up Photoshop for the first time. So yes, a lot of my friends are currently learning KiCad. It is something I am trying to do as well. I understand it a little bit, but it is a process that takes some time to get used to. All right, so I think we are most of the way through the stream. We've got maybe a couple more minutes left, and I'm going to check back in on some of the comments that we had on the YouTube channel. Okay, so here is a comment, and we'll go back to, yep, there we go. This is a comment on the Apple Juice Bluetooth spamming demo. So this is something that we debuted a while ago, and we were talking about using a PyPico in order to spam out a bunch of fake Bluetooth signals that looked like pairing requests from different devices. And this user said that only the Apple TV one is working for me. I tried on my phone. It only pops up after I close the screen and type in the passcode every time. I guess that's something. So it looks like this Apple Juice attack might be being addressed with, some security mechanisms that make this a little less effective. And that doesn't honestly surprise me too much, given that this happened a while ago. And I feel like it's trickled down now that enough people have had it happen to them that they're annoyed and they wish Apple would probably do something about it. So some other people also responded to my take on C++ versus Python. Quote, in my own experience, I would say Python first. I had to learn C++ for university. I remember almost none of it now. And if it wasn't taught in a slow and steady way. And that was my experience as well. Yeah, like I wasn't taught C++ in a way that was gentle or easy to remember. And thus I gravitated towards Python as it was easier for myself to remember. Man, you have to talk about the exploding pages in Lebanon. Yes, we did. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the reminder. What would you say is better for getting into hacking, software hacking or hardware hacking? Right now, I'm learning C++ and working through the book, How Linux Works, What Every Super User Should Know. So it really depends on what you want to do. For software hacking, obviously, you're going to have more applications there because you can do development. You can do a layer of maybe like checking on development work to make sure that security is being enforced if you understand software development. But when it comes to hardware security, it certainly seems like there are a lot of, there's a lot of need for supply chain security, for example, and for other people who understand how all that manufacturing stuff works. So I would say that for cybersecurity, unless I'm making prototypes or, unless I'm like making prototypes or creating electronics, like I don't use the hardware hacking side as much. It is very niche compared to the software world, which is much, much larger. So I would say if you're just looking for job opportunities, the software side of things is going to be where a lot of stuff really is. But the hardware side is a lot of fun and it is very niche in some areas. So yeah, if you're interested in security and hardware, then you might find yourself in an area where there's less competition maybe, and there's some very specific applications that need that kind of work. So I really enjoy the hardware side of things. I would never purely be able to work in software, but that for me is because I need applied things in order to stay invested and interested. All right, so I think that is Oh, sorry, we'll do this one more. Let's see. Is Meshtastic a loophole? Thoughts proposed on the 915 megahertz restriction. This comment says, I'm just in this field, but it is my understanding that the little radio modules that are responsible for the physical transmission are in the form of SDR. That would mean the users would have to go a little up or down on the spectrum. That could easily be changed in the LoRaWAN radio libraries. Any thoughts? So there's a proposal to allow a company to do satellite navigation, like uplinks and downlinks in the 900 megahertz range that would probably disrupt the ability for low energy devices like LoRa to transmit and receive in a mesh network like we have been trying to create with Meshtastic. So the concern here is that by allowing them to do these very, very strong transmissions on these frequencies that very low power devices are making, very weak signals on, it's going to kind of blow them out of the water, and that the hardware will become useless. Now, some of this hardware is software defined at some level, but it is tuned towards specific frequencies and has limits to how far it can be changed. So if the frequency assigned would be moved too much, or even if it's still receiving interference from some of these transmissions, then it could still cause problems. But a software fix likely would solve at least some of the issues when it comes to needing to move a frequency up or down. Just keep in mind that it is limited and it may no longer be tuned for that, especially if the frequency goes too far, then the antenna might also need to be changed as well. Okay, so that's just about all the time we have for today. Thank you for diving into this complex and frankly super crazy story that broke yesterday and today about the exploding electronics. I hope you are all assured that a regular lithium battery cannot do this. Your devices are safe, and this does seem to be very specific and very stunning supply chain attack that was carried out with an incredible degree of precision. So yes, understandable that some people might want to toss their stuff in the microwave too. Just make sure to not turn the microwave on, or you are much more likely to actually cause a fire. All right, everyone, thank you for tuning in today. If you want to support the stream, you can always go to varonis.com/Kody, that's Kody. It lets everyone here know that you appreciate the stream and you want us to keep going twice a week, every week. Thank you to everybody for letting me recover last week. And you might remember that last time our light suddenly crashed and would no longer work. It would turn on, but the software running it stopped functioning. So we're back out of the dark, and hopefully everything continues working with the equipment so far. All right, so we will see everyone on the Friday stream next, where I'm going to go over setting up a cloud security lab and also all the security news of the week. We'll probably touch on some updates from the last couple of days of stories, and we will see everyone again there. So thank you for hanging out with us, everyone, and we will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.